Hey there, welcome back friends. In this video we will talk about multi-level and multiple inheritance. So let's get started. So in here we have created this very simple, easy to understand diagram. In here imagine G1 G2 to be two classes, G1 to be grandparent 1, G2 to be grandparent 2. Likewise we have P1 and P2. P1 is parent 1 and P2 is parent 2, and finally we have C class, C1 class, C1 is child 1. Alright, so now moving forward, let us create two classes. Class P1, here we go, let me pass it. Likewise, let's create P2. Here we go, let me also pass on this. Now let me create C1. Good enough. Here we go. So this is nice. And now for example, in here we create a method. First of all, let us define the init method. So it would be like underscore underscore init underscore underscore self. Here we go. And in here we will simply give a pass. We won't do anything as of now, and let us create a yet another method as who am I, and this method will again receive self, and we will print I am C1. Good enough. Let me run this. And in here, if I create an object of C1 as C1 equals C1 and C1 dot who am I, in this case we would be able to see something which is I am C1. Fairly straightforward. Now friends, for example, we inherit from P1 and P2. Is it possible? Definitely it is possible. Firstly, we will inherit from P1, then P2. Let me run this. And we get the same output. So in here, first of all, let me copy this part. Let me paste it in here. And in here, we will say I am P2. Let me copy this once again. Let me paste it in here. And in here we will say I am P1. Now take a note of it. Friends, there are two things. First of all, we have same method name in the parent classes again. So that's one thing. Indeed, let me do one thing. Let me comment out these two lines as of now. Alright, let me run these declaration. Oops, there is some kind of issue. Let me fix this. Let me run this. There is no difference, but there is a thing. When it comes to this class C1, we are inheriting from P1 and P2, and in here we also have same method in P1. But when we run this, we will always run the local method. So the priority will always be given to the local method. So C1 has the who am I method, so we will get I am C1 as output. For example, we comment out these two lines and we run this once again, then it will say I am P1, right? Take a note of it that in here we are overriding the inherited method. Alright, now what happens if we have this method commented out? We have this who am I method in C1 and we inherit from P1 and P2. Will it make any changes? And I am pretty sure that you might have guessed it right. There won't be any changes. Again, the priority of the local method will be given. Indeed, I guess, let me run these statements once again, and somehow it is showing inconsistent result. Let me rerun the kernel. Many times you may get a inconsistent result, so in those case simply rerun the kernel once and rerun the code, and here we go. So definitely we can make out that the local version has the highest priority, and it doesn't matter how many time we inherit from the superclass, the local version of the method will get the highest priority. Now for example, we comment out who I am. Now there could be a confusion. We have two versions of who I am from P1 and P2. How Python will handle it? Let me run this, and it will give the priority to the first inherited method, and this can be identified by MRO. MRO is method resolution order. So in here, for example, I type in C1 dot and I show you the suggestions, then we will able to see something known as MRO, which I am not able to get it right away. Let me try to run this. Well, this is not showing MRO indeed. This is weird. Let me directly try with C1. Here we go. So in here we can do what? We can type in C1, which is nothing but the name of the class, dot, and I can show you the methods. These are MRO and who am I. Now MRO is not created by us, but it is by default available, and if I call in this method, then it will give us the order. So the first priority is to C1, which is the local base class, the subclass. Then the priority is P1. That is the reason why it is showing us I am P1. The priority of P1 is more than P2, and then finally the priority is P2. So in here, for example, I comment out the method from P2 and run these classes and run the method, then it will show I am P2 because P2 has lower priority, but definitely P2 is also made used. Now when we inherit from more than one class, it is multiple inheritance, and because of MRO there won't be any ambiguity. There is always a sequence followed. Now before Python 2.3 there was some issue with MRO. After version 2.3 the MRO sequencing was further fixed, and the issue was based on multi-level inheritance. So I will talk about the sequencing furthermore with multi-level inheritance in just a minute. Alright, so now moving forward, let us create G1 and G2, and let us do one more thing as well. In here, let me get rid of this comment. Here we go. And let us also do one thing. Let us create couple of additional methods for P1 and P2 again. So in here, inside this class P2, we would be creating a yet another method. The name would be native place. All right. And we will display parent land 2.0. This looks good, and take a note of it. I am not adding anything for P1. Good enough, and nor I am adding anything for C1. All right. Now moving forward, let us create couple of more methods in here. Alright, so we have added a new field in here by hitting Alt Enter, and now let us create a new class by the name of G1. Let me copy this, let me paste it in here, and it would be like I am G1, Alt plus Enter. Let me copy the entire class again. Let me paste it in here. and now we will update the name to G2, and in here we will type in G2. This looks good, and this method would be very simple. So it would be like define method from colon, and in here again we will add the self parameter and we will print method from P2. This looks good. And now finally let us create a yet another parent for both of these. So in here let's do one thing. Let me add a element in here. Now in order to add a field, we can make use of Alt Enter, so it will add the field right away. So in here the field would be added, and it would be like class G1 colon. Let us add pass in here. Let me Alt Enter. Let me copy this. Let me paste it in here, and we would be adding G2. Now for example, we inherit G1 and G2 comma G2 in P1 and P2. Now there is a multi-level inheritance, right? So we are inheriting from G1 and G2, and C1 is inheriting from P1 and P2. So there is a multi-level inheritance, and how this will work, let us check quickly. So in here we have this method from, right? And indeed, let me copy this part and paste it under G1 and G2, and it would be like I am G1, and let me get rid of this method, and in here it would be like G2 method from G2. Alright, so now let me run all of these. Indentation error, let me fix this. Indentation error, I suppose. Let me run and check. Unindented. Well, there is a issue. Let me run this now. Alright, so we have G1, G2, P1, P2 and C1. Good enough. Now for example, we don't have who am I method in C1, and we run this particular statement, it will say P2, because this who am I method is available in P2, and the who am I method is not available in P1, I suppose. Let me check. It is showing P2, which is weird, I suppose. Here we go. Now for example, we try to call in C1 dot and check methods. Then we have who I am and method from. Now take a note of it. C1 doesn't have method from, right? But P2 has it, right? So in here, if I run this, then it will say method from P2, and P1 again don't have it. But for example, P2 again don't have it. Then what would be the outcome? Will it derive the hierarchy further upwards? Would we able to run method from G1 or G2? Under G2 we have this method from method. So let us check. Indeed, let me run all of these classes declaration first of all. Here we go. So now we have the method from G2. So even though there is a multi-level inheritance, it is fair enough. This is possible. We can inherit from the upper level. If we are following multi-level inheritance, that is perfectly okay. So C1 object can call in a inherited grandparent method. That is perfectly okay. So C1 is inheriting P1 and P2, and P1 and P2 is inheriting G1 and G2. Now when we have these kind of like hierarchy, what would be the MRO, method resolution order? So let us check. So it would be like C1 dot MRO. Let me show you. So here is the preference. So C1, then P1, P2, G1 and G2. Now how it works? So in here, this sequence is important. So in here, for example, I inherit P1 and P2. So the P1 will be given more priority than P2. So in here, for example, I make it as P2 and P1. Then the MRO will change a little. Let me show you. Just let me run all of the methods. It is saying who am I, duplicate base class P2. Okay, so it would be like P1 in here. There is a genuine mistake. Alright, so now if I run MRO, take a note of it. P2 is now getting higher priority. So this sequencing of parameter is important, and because the sequencing was P1, P2, let me undo the changes, and in here G1 and G2, as a result we are getting this priority, right? So this is fairly straightforward, and well, this is it. Don't get too much into it. This could be little confusing, and it would be like kind of a complicated infrastructure of Python programming. Now friends, this is good enough, and whenever if there is any confusion how the hierarchy is working, you can simply run the MRO method and it will give you the method order. And indeed there are a couple of restrictions again, so this is fairly straightforward and you won't find it difficult when you will grow old in Python. For example, if I convert the sequence from G1 to G2, and it could be like G2 comma G1 in here. Now take a note of it. P1 and P2 are in same level and we are trying to change the sequence. As a result, there would be error. So let me try to run these classes. Here we go. So as soon as we try to further inherit a child class, there would be an error, and the error would be cannot create a consistent method resolution order MRO for bases G1 and G2. So there are like inconsistency handling mechanism implemented by Python again, and you cannot do anything. It is flexible, but it will give you error if you add a inconsistency in the MRO order. Alright, so having said this, MRO, then multi-level, multi-level inheritance, multiple inheritance, everything is possible, and with MRO method you can anyway check the sequencing, check the method order. Everything is very simple and it won't be confusing when you will grow old under Python. Alright, so having said this, take this with a pinch of salt, and this is it for today. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day and take care.